Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be another Canadian Soldier Reacts, and we're going to be reacting to the Canadian Armed Forces infantry officer. But I've gone through this video already, and we're going to be talking a lot more about how the Canadian compares to the American, and we're going to be talking a lot about the kit that you're going to see here, because a lot of the things that I've talked about in previous videos, they actually show in this video. One of the better ones that I've seen that actually shows a lot of the stuff that Canada really uses. And then, I guess, right out in front, I want to say that I'm not a fan of taking 19-year-old or 18-year-old kids off the street and turning them into infantry officers. I believe, after having been a junior NCO, I believe that the infantry, probably the entire armed forces, but that's a little more up for debate, should actually be a linear progression, in that everyone should have to start at private, and then work their way up all the way to general of the Army, full general. That's important for a whole number of reasons, not the least of which being it gives every officer a much better understanding of what their troops are going through, because half of these idiots, quite honestly, don't have a clue what their troops are going through. And there's a system where your platoon warrant officer will get assigned to, with 15, 20 plus years in, will get assigned to this infantry officer who, in a lot of cases, like I said, 15 to 20 years in a lot of cases, this kid wasn't born when this warrant officer joined the Army. But this kid is now in charge of him, and this warrant officer has to teach him how to do his job. That's stupid. And then the second part of that is it actually makes the promotion structure significantly better for everyone, right? Because after a chief warrant officer, and I don't know, maybe you would have to restructure this a little bit. I'd have to think a little bit more about it. But you actually start into the officer ranks at that point, or yeah, I don't know. There probably a little more thought needs to go into it, but that's just kind of my bias in this. So let's take a look, and hopefully we'll compare it to some of the things that we've seen in the past videos here and talk.
I'm Captain Alex Bouzoyou from Montreal.
Okay, first thing I want to talk about is the beard. I've had a bunch of my friends from back in the day ask me to start talking about the grooming standards currently. So I might piss some people off, but here's the thing about that. I mean, I don't like it, obviously. It doesn't look... you don't look as neat. You don't look as professional. But honestly, a lot of the reasoning that was given even in my time for not having the beard was quite honestly bunk. The only reasoning that I really understand for not having the beard is discipline. You say they can't do something, so they can't do it. The other big one that we got all the time was fitting your gas mask. The problem that I have with that is Pioneer Platoon was always allowed to wear beards. So if I have to be clean shaven in order to be able to wear a gas mask, why doesn't Pioneer Platoon? And if you're going to give exceptions like that, same thing in the Navy. Navies were always allowed to have beards, and while they generally don't have to have gas masks, they do have to have firefighting equipment on, so oxygen. If you're going to allow some exceptions to that rule, then at least the gas mask thing becomes a junk answer also. So other than possible discipline, I don't see the reasoning for not allowing people to have beards, other than the fact that they just, I don't know, I think they look more professional without them, but that might be the way that I was trained.
I'm an infantry officer currently serving at the Canadian Armed Forces Infantry School in Gagetown.
So that's new too. Well, I mean, I guess they always called it the infantry school, but that's where your 6Bs would take. So it would be the advanced infantry training. The battle school was always in Petawawa, so that would be your basic infantry training, and your 6A would be at battle school. And I guess small arms 6B and everything else would have gone to Gagetown. I cannot tell you how many times I chewed dirt in Gagetown.
Forces are the first boots on the ground for military operations around the world. From raids and ambushes to security and stabilization.
So that, I think they call that a Unimog. That's a newer vehicle. I don't even think they were in at all when I was in.
Missions. Infantry officers have an exciting job. The role of the infantry is to close with...
Okay, back that up.
Infantry officers have an exciting job. The role of the infantry...
So, two important weapons, and one sec, I'll be right back. I promised I'd do this, and I forgot. So, that is my BFA, and you can see that on the end of this guy's rifle right here, although he's missing the D-ring or the O-ring, whatever the heck it is. I don't know why he took that off. This was on my rifle for like 10 years, and I never ever had a single issue with it. So this is a Carl Gustaf. This is an 84 millimeter rocket launcher. It would never be deployed in a live fire situation the way that he's doing it here for a couple of reasons. First of all, he would always have his loader, and his loader would always be on his right side. He's got a wall on his right side. Secondly, he's got a massive backblast area. There's a huge fire plume that would jump out the back of this thing. And you notice he's got a kind of angled away from the wall. That means that backblast is going right into that wall, and it's bouncing off into whoever is behind there. This is your C8 belt-fed 5.56 squad automatic weapon. You guys, the Americans tend to call it a SAW, I believe. Looking at these two, this makes me think that we're looking at a heavy weapons det, whether it's a platoon or a company heavy weapons section det, whatever.
Is to close with and destroy the enemy, but
that's another very important piece of information. The mission of the infantry is to close with and destroy the enemy, period. I mean, it goes on to say in types of operations and stuff like that, but the general gist is no matter what, close with and destroy the enemy. This is the C7. I'm told this is the A2 variant with a collapsible... Actually, no, that's a C8. This is a C8 because it's got a shorter barrel. You will see longer barrels, but also with the collapsible stock. I'm told that's a C7A2, but I had the C7A1.
But it's much more than that. It's the infantry that takes and holds ground on the modern battlefield.
Also important, you cannot hold ground, take and hold ground without the infantry. Absolutely vital.
As part of a combined arms team, including armor, artillery.
Another piece of very important information, combined arms. I saw a lot of people commenting on the Striker video that I did. By the way, I've come to find out one of the comments was saying that those are actually Canadian vehicles, designed and built in Canada. And if that's the case, I actually know one of the guys who worked on the design team for that. He was in my battalion back in London, which is kind of cool. But combined arms are extremely important, and you have to deploy them properly because every one of them complements and supports each other. And if you deploy them improperly, you're going to get a lot of people killed.
And engineers.
Fire!
I know. I know I'm stopping this a lot, but it's kind of important. So they just talked about armored artillery and engineers, and at the combat group, so the battalion and above combat group level. So battalion of infantry. I can never remember the right titles for the other ones, but basically battalion of armored, battalion of artillery, and a battalion of engineers. Those together, they form a combat group. But if you suck that down to the infantry battalion level, we have all of those roles represented, albeit at a much smaller scaled down level, but we have all of those roles represented inside the battalion level also. Very important to note on how these units or groups are deployed.
The role of the infantry in relation to other arms, may they be combat or not, is the centerpiece. So around it, the infantry will provide the bulk of the ground forces, but they are always collaborating, may it be with armored units, artillery.
So what he's saying is actually pretty important and pretty good. So that's a C7A2 there. You notice it's got the longer barrel, but still a collapsible stock.
By the bulk of the ground forces, but they are...
So this is interesting. So this is their... Well, I don't know what they're using this for anymore. When this is a radio, and it's fitting in this front pocket, and if it's the one that I'm thinking of, it's about as big as this, but twice as tall, and about probably 3 times as thick as this. And we only use that for ground-to-air communications. When we did ground-to-ground communications, we had a 77 set on our back, and that frickin' thing is huge and heavy. But the same antenna, the exact same antenna. So I'm not exactly sure. I think, if I remember correctly, we started using these for like platoon and lower level communications, maybe even section level communications, just before I got out. But I could be wrong on that.
Always collaborating, may it be with armored units.
So this is a Leopard 2. I don't know which A designation it is. We have at least the A1s and the A2s, and I'm not sure which is which. But this is a Leopard 2 main battle tank, a very good main battle tank. The armored guys would know better than I would what it can go up against. The one thing that I will say is that at the infantry battalion level, we have an anti-armor platoon. The anti-armor platoon is, or at least when I was there, was crewed in M113A2 variants, and we had vehicle-mounted TOW-2 missile systems. And and this is, again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about deploying everything properly. A TOW-2 missile system can take that out. In fact, it can take, I think, anything on the battlefield today, definitely including an M1 Abrams tank, can take that out at, I believe it's 4.5 or 4.75 kilometers with extreme accuracy. So you have to be very, very careful how you're deploying things today, or you're just going to be wasting troops and equipment.
Artillery units.
Artillery, that was I think it's the 105 howitzer is what Canada still uses. Now, I don't know a lot about the Air Force, except that we're small. I think we've gotten the double digits of attack aircraft, fast air attack aircraft. I've said this before. I worked more with the rotary wing squadrons. We did a lot of air insertions through either twin Hueys or Chinooks.
Air Force units and even logistical support.
So that's new. The big radar dishes, that's new to me. Also, I don't know.
On combat units in order to achieve that. So the infantry provides the combat presence and all.
So that's a C6. So that's a C6 7.62 machine gun, belt fed. Obviously, these are blanks. I've said before I hate blanks, but They jam so often. That you would have one in every platoon in the heavy weapons net, I believe. And then you would have more, like every heavy weapons det or section or platoon would have one or more of these.
Often provides most of the leadership presence.
The Army has a proud heritage in Canada and abroad, having accomplished many battle honors. A regiment...
including Afghanistan, actually. My unit, 1 RCR, saw, and I think 2 RCR also, and possibly also 2 PPCLI, I can't remember, but saw some pretty heavy fighting in Afghanistan. I believe that's the PPCLI badge. And the fact that it's maroon says that this guy is actually employed in an airborne unit. Now, this is another one that I'll probably get into in more depth later, not in this one. Canada had what was called the commando units back when I first got in. They had 3 commando units, and they called them regiments. 1 commando, 2 commando, 3 commando. But they were really more the size of a company. And they were always still segregated to their units. So one command... I can't remember which one came from which unit, but one of the commandos came completely from the RCR, one of the commandos came completely from the PPCLI, and one of the commandos came completely from the Vandus. They got themselves into some trouble in Africa back in, I'm going to say 93, I think, and we can talk more about that in a future video, but they essentially got disbanded. What does that mean? It means the name commando went away, and those companies, which was essentially what they were, went back to their home regiments, and they kind of spread out into the whole home regiment. So the people that actually got them in trouble really just spread out into the regiments. That was problematic, but they were looking to instill some more discipline in these guys. For the RCR, what happened then was we actually stood up a jump company in 3 RCR. So 3 RCR then became a jump company. So when they were commandos, they wore different cap badges. They didn't wear their own unit cap badges. When they went back to their regiments after the commando was disbanded and were employed in a jump company, then they were wearing, so this would have been a jump company, so that's why he's wearing a PPCLI cap badge with the maroon beret.
Regimental cap badge is a symbol and source of pride of belonging to a storied regiment that can be more than 100 years old. This sense of history and pride is embodied in every infantry officer and regiment across Canada.
Yes.
When I'm at the unit, my job consists of maintaining both the morale and physical fitness of the men and women that are part of my unit, but also preparing for the next task, next mission may be.
So that was M72s you just saw there. I think there's 2 per section carried at all times. This is actually Carl G training. So going back to what I talked about, this is Carl Gustav there. And this is more the configuration that you would see it in. It's always fired in a 2-man team. And you never fire it against a wall. Obviously, this is just training, so there's people standing around watching. But and what you're seeing here is a lot more indicative of life in an infantry battalion. I've said this before. In an infantry battalion, you are either training, you're deployed, or you're on leave. That's really the only states of infantry. Very, very high energy job. You've definitely, you're go, everyone, all the time.
Combat operations here, or just operations to fight fires, to prevent floods, or even as I did.
Yeah, that happens a lot. So that would be aid to civil power or disaster relief. In Canada, every year, every second year, we would get deployed to fight fires. Several times we got deployed to fight floods. They definitely use us, and that's something else that's different between Canada and the United States. The Pase Comitatus thing that you have down in the States, we don't have it. The Canadian military can be deployed within Canada as necessary. Now, combat operations are a completely separate thing, but for whatever aid needs, you can do that. In fact, I remember a time, I wasn't on this, but a bunch of the other guys, there was a snowstorm. I think it was in Toronto, big snowstorm, and we actually get called out with our tracked vehicles, basically to provide taxi service to VIP people or rescue for people. So you can do a lot of things in the infantry.
Do capacity training and security building in other nations.
Fitness, mental resiliency, and the will to fight are some of the top skills for infantry officers who can expect to be challenged and tested in every endeavor.
The infantry was my first choice, actually, because I realized that the infantry would provide me the most diverse opportunities in terms.
So that is what I would call a twin-engine Huey. I don't know if it's that or if it's a Griffin. If somebody knows the difference between a Griffin and a twin-engine Huey, let me know down in the comments below, please. I'd really appreciate it. But this was the workhorse. This is what we did all the time. You'll see these guys are going into jump. So I was not a paratrooper. I was what they called a leg. There's actually two kind of meanings to that name. The first is you get everywhere on your legs, and the second is LEG, lack enough guts. That's not the case with me. I've skydived before. I have no problem with that. I just was not ever going to go to the commando because, to be honest, it wasn't a good, in my estimation. I know I've got a lot of buddies out there who were good airborne soldiers, but there were a lot of bad apples in the commando too. And I think anybody who was actually in the commando would admit that.
Of employment, career paths, both short-term and long-term within the Canadian Armed Forces, and as well the most interesting opportunities to command may be at the platoon level, the company, the combat team level, and if I'm lucky enough, to the battle group level.
Yeah, so that's true. You know, at the platoon level, the platoon commander, you're responsible for 32 guys, and it's not easy. Now this, I don't know what this is, because this looks like a Humvee, and as to my knowledge, Canada doesn't have them and has never had them, unless we borrowed them in Afghanistan from the United States or something. I don't know.
Being an infantry officer is an adventure that can take you anywhere in the world, be it urban, rural, desert, forest, jungle, Arctic, or working with our allies overseas on.
Yeah, so I don't think I was ever in an actual jungle. I was in a rainforest, but basically every other thing that she said there, I worked in it. We really did get deployed everywhere to do everything.
Important NATO missions.
We did several NATO
Leadership is
missions.
not just a word in this line of work, it's a motto to live by and demonstrate every day. Infantry officers are excellent problem solvers.
That's the winter
who work
cam
under
you just saw
demanding
there.
conditions and tight timelines to get the job done.
Roger, we'll send SITREP once MVT secure. Out.
So you need to be the type of person that.
So I'm trying to find a good picture of the Kodiak.
Can kind of go through the stress, but also be able to simultaneously see the short-term and bigger picture. It takes capacity to be courageous in what you do and go for it, but also humble in order to kind of realize that sometimes you may not have the solution, but there's people in your unit, in your platoon, in your company that may be able to supplement that.
Yeah, and that's the mark of a good leader. Not always having to be the one that comes up with the solution, but knowing when there's a better solution available. Smart.
So you can solve that problem.
Cover fire, we're going to the building!
All right, so that's probably the best view that I've gotten recently. So, oh, actually, this is pretty good too. So it shows a whole bunch of things that we talked about in the Striker. So here are the grenade launchers that I was talking about. And so I couldn't remember if they were 4 or 6, whatever it was. So it's 4 and 4. And again, I'm pretty sure it's primarily used for smoke. I only ever saw them used for smoke. You might be able to put frag grenades in there. I don't know, but they're a one-shot deal. Once you're done, and you've got to go back out and manually reload them. You're not doing that during a firefight. Then the second thing that's actually there's a lot of cool stuff. So obviously you can see the GPMG. This is probably a C6. I'm not sure, but it's coaxial mounted to the 30 millimeter main gun. So this is an AIFV. This is not the armored variant. But then you've got a pintle mounted C6 on top of that. So this thing can put out a fair bit of fire, and that's really only with the driver and the crew commander in it. So this acts as a fire base. But again, as I said before, you've got to deploy this correctly because you've got an entire section of infantry in the back there, and if you try to go too far with the mounted infantry, you're just going to get blown up, because while these things can withstand 5.56 and probably 7.62 fire, and maybe some glancing fire from a 50 cal, anything bigger than that, including 50 cals if it's at the right angle, going to go right through this thing and absolutely shred it. So you've got to be careful how you deploy these.
I worked in the private sector before I joined, and never will you find an employer where on day one, once you're qualified, you have at least 30 people that you're fully in charge of,
fair.
And you are responsible for them. It's yours to manage and to lead, and you are given full freedom of movement from day one.
So now they're back in garrison. So I've not been at the infantry school in Gagetown. I've been deployed to the field in Gagetown. Gagetown, I think, is the second largest base in the Commonwealth. It's massive. Like, it's a huge, huge base. It takes up like kind of the entire center portion of New Brunswick. This looks kind of similar to the buildings that 1 and 3 RCR were in Petawawa, only it looks like it's more stories than ours was. But basically, we called it the mall because it kind of had the feel of a shopping mall with that center atrium that you could look down on.
Upon completion of their Army phase training,
Well, that's a big
infantry
building.
officers in the regular force are posted to a battalion at one of Canada's major bases and assume command of a platoon of 30 to 40 soldiers.
Yeah, so for the RCR, there's really only two bases. 1 and 3 are in Petawawa, unless somebody's moved that I don't know about, and 2 is in Gagetown.
Reservists return to their hometown regiment
that's
after their
nice.
training and also assume a leadership
We
role.
did not have that.
First 3 years tend to be very similar for all of us. Afterwards, it's really what fits you, and the careers can go in many different directions. You could be an assistant for a general, you could go to a training establishment where you get specialties and qualifications throughout that time, or you could go to a reserve unit where you help train the reserve and occupy a lot of key senior positions, or you
After 3 years, you'd still be a lieutenant. I think it's 4 years generally. Well, no, a second lieutenant. Well, no, I think after 2 years you can get your promotion to first lieutenant. I think the fastest you can get promotions, I think, with one exception. We'll talk about that in another video. It's one promotion every 2 years. So after the first 3 years, you still don't know much, to be honest. And same thing with a private after the first 3 years. In the grand scheme of things, there's still lots to learn.
could go actually in diverse routes, like to tech school, where you get a specialty in doing Army development projects, all sorts of avenues.
That was an amphibious assault you just saw there, I think.
I wanted to give back.
Saw he was all
because
wet.
I'm not born here. I came to Canada when I was a young kid, 8 years old, in the 90s. I got tremendous opportunities in Canada.
That's
I think
cool.
Some Canadians sometimes forget how great Canada is. It helped.
Canada is a fantastic country. Oh, now this is interesting. So that front vehicle, I can't tell if it's got 6 or 8 wheels. That's a problem. Oh, you can't see it because it's underneath my face. But it looks like a striker type of a vehicle. That back vehicle, though, I can't remember what those were called, but I thought they were phased out. That's the 4-wheeled variant, unless there's a new one. Again, if you know anything about that 4-wheeled vehicle right here, let me know. And then I believe these 2 transport trucks here are called HLVWs, Heavy Logistical Vehicle Wheeled, because the Army has just a fantastic way of naming things.
Helps that people give back into it with their abilities, skills, knowledge, or just desire. And I felt that in this profession, I could do that.
Yeah, there's another one, 4-wheeled vehicle. It looks swimmable. That looks like a swimmable nose. That could be drive propellers there. I don't know. I don't know where this is, but I've been deployed to do this kind of assistance before also. Winnipeg, they had some big floods back in, I want to say 97, 96, 97? I think 97.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think I'm doing a pretty good job too. Whoa. I haven't seen that. I don't know what kind of a weapon. That looks like a bullpup. It looks like a British weapon. I don't know what that is. If you know what this weapon is, let me know down in the comments. So, there you go. That's, well, more than just the infantry officer. I mean, the infantry officer all by himself would be a little bit boring to talk about. But all of the things that they do, all of the kit that they have, and how that compares and contrasts to the American forces, to me it's kind of fascinating. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're not, tell your friends about me, please, because that helps grow the channel, and I appreciate it. Any comments that you want to leave, good or bad, leave them down below, and I try to answer everything. So, thanks, guys, and I will see you on the next one.